All right, I am Shane Cashman, and I'm here with Paul Thorstenson, and he is the writer of Weakling Planet, out now through Vulture House Press. It's my favorite book of the year. It is a lot of fun to read. I hope everyone gets it. And yeah, we're going to talk to Paul about his writing, his process, music, lyrics, and anything. Paul, you want to give us a little intro about yourself?
Yeah, like you said, my name is Paul Thorstenson. I've been involved for about 30 years now in the metal slash hardcore scene as the vocalist and lyricist for the band Dissolve, as well as probably about 30 or 40 other little projects,
You're
little,
busy.
small, the large, I don't know, all different size projects, I guess. And yeah, and I've always been a little bit of a writer, but this is the first time that I've actually ever put something together, and I still can't believe that you put it out.
You did a damn good job. So I definitely want to talk music soon, but first,
Sure.
so I think Weakling Planet, we learned fairly early on in the book that the title and where it comes from, and you say your your narrator of the first story says something about being a visitor from another planet, right? And then like a weakling planet. He's in the gym trying to, lift some weights around people who are, I guess, lifting with no problem at all. And I don't want to give any spoiler alerts, but your character happens to defecate himself.
Yes.
Um, I'll put that in the G-rated sense. And so, with that in mind, do you remember some of your earlier memories of feeling like an outsider?
Yeah. I think really the first time I ever really felt like an outsider was when I switched schools. When my parents split up, we went to stay with my grandparents in Pauling, New York. And that's really where I saw it was a whole different way of life there. I don't know. It was a bunch of like really large milk fed farm boys, who were just, 3 times the size as me, and it wasn't incredibly welcoming. It took a long time for me to find some friends there, probably like a couple of years. Really, by the time I found friends, I moved again. So that was really my first experience of being an outsider. And then, it's kind of funny, but once, I don't know if this is the same for everybody, but I think once you're put in that position where you're an outsider, you get used to it. And then you kind of put yourself there. Like when I went back to Arlington High School, which is where I had moved out of that district to move to Pauling. When I moved back there, I was just kind of like, well, fuck y'all. I'm now not a part of this mainstream thing.
Yeah, I think it's, would you say, I mean, can't speak for everybody, but I think there's something kind of crucial about becoming an outsider early on and how it can infect your observational skills. Because when you're an outsider early on, you literally on the outside looking in the whole time, trying to gauge yourself against these people. How am I do I want to even be a part of them at first?
Right.
So I feel like it's maybe not crucial because, whatever path you choose is cool. But I think the art that I'm attracted to, though, seems to come from people who felt like an outsider in one way or another. And then that whole feeling comes through your whole book. It's almost like the underdog's either miserable conclusion or sometimes revenge. So it's fun to read that in your book. When you started writing for this book, or I guess a better way to put it is, was there a story you wrote first that you realized I can make a whole book out of this?
Wow, that's kind of hard to say. The one of the stories in the book actually started out as the first short story that I ever wrote, and it was, I think, around like 1992 or 93 was the first draft of it. It's the story in a book called Zoom, and I remember writing that back then. I think I showed it to a few friends, and that
Right.
was really the extent of it. And then I think about maybe a decade later, I tried to rewrite it, and then 20 years later, recently, I decided to kind of dust it off and see if there was anything salvageable there. But that's kind of how the book started, was going through things that I'd written over the years, dusting it off and just kind of seeing if they were still good. Um, and when I read all of the stuff that I'd written years ago, like especially like in the mid 90s or the late 90s, and even stuff a little more recently, I was kind of taken aback at how bad it was. I was like, wow, I thought I had a lot more to work with here. I thought that maybe I change a word here and there, or maybe some misspellings, but these are terrible. But there were ideas.
Yeah.
So I basically just kind of took all of those and rewrote them.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
sorry. I was just gonna say real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You said it's funny that you say you wrote some of these like in the 90s. I knew you had rewritten or edited some, but none of them feel aged to me at all. They feel like they're as urgent as yesterday. So whatever you did, it worked in the editing process. But I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
Oh yeah, well, like I said, for most of them, it was just a basic idea, and I
Yeah,
just scrapped it completely and started over. But once I kind of plowed through all of those, I don't know, I was just kind of on a roll. I figured I would just try to write a little bit every day whenever I had a moment. Sometimes I wrote in complete chaos with, my kids yelling and screaming around me. But I don't know. I still managed to would try to squeeze a little bit of something out every day, either by starting something new, or editing and revising something else. See, depending on where my head was at that day. Like if I
yeah,
had an idea. And yeah, I mean, and then once that happened, I was really surprised at how many new things came to me. So yeah, it was pretty exciting. And I pretty much just wrote until I was like, all right, I don't think I have any more for now.
Well, you created a very specific world, and some of my favorite things to watch or write, listen to, are things that kind of mix realism with like surrealism or absurdity. I personally think, especially after like the last year and a half we've all been through, feel like the things that are actual realism are the things that are completely absurd,
Right.
right? Like then civilization is in a weird place. And so when I first started reading your stories, I was like, this is exactly how I feel. And I think most people feel like they're set in a place we all recognize, but your characters are going through insane things, right? And we're all going through that on a personal level, national level, international level. And so those things really, I really respond to that writing. And so like reading that, I kept thinking like these are like snapshots of absurdity, right? And like I'm very jealous of the way you can start a story and end a story. Like there's a music to it, and you can tell like you've been writing lyrics for a while, and like you have an idea of how a song should be, and you know and maybe I'm just projecting it onto you because I'm so used to your music and your art, but to me they're like heavy, punk songs, but they're beautiful. So that to me it resonated so much. So thinking of like you as a musician, lyricist, and you're a filmmaker, right? They have all these different hats you wear.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of brought back to when I was first introduced to the idea of you and Dissolve, right? Like, so I was in a band when I was like, for a long time, and we were like 16. We started playing shows outside of our little valley, right, where we didn't know anything. All we knew was like what we got from the CD store. We didn't know about local scenes. And when we first played our first like real show at Club Culture in Chester, New York, we met some people we really liked, right? They're guys in my bitter end, like Daniel Edward Dwyer, aka Stretch, and Jesse Madre. And then we met the guys in When Dreams Die and Who Become Robots in Empire. And they all said the same thing. They looked up to Dissolve. We're like, who the fuck is Dissolve? And so and then we find out like, holy shit, this band is amazing. So I've always been interested in like lineage of things.
Uh-huh.
Like where people I look up to, who they look up to, and then so on and so forth. So I guess it's a long-winded two-part question about, in terms of writing, who are the people you kind of like, who are your like lighthouses that you're looking towards, if you have any, as writers or filmmakers?
Hmm. That's an interesting question. I know, as far as I know with writing lyrics, when Dissolve started, I was really, I think we shared writing lyrics. Our drummer, Kevin, would write some lyrics. Our guitar player, John, would write some lyrics too. And we were just writing basically what was expected of a hardcore band. It was just
Oh
like,
yeah.
all right, this song is about a friend that fucked me over, this, and, I'm mad now. And, this
Yeah.
song is about something political that I know that I'm kind of not really informed about. And, so that's kind of how it started. And I think some breakthroughs like along the way were, I think I started to take some more cues from film. I started thinking a little more visually, trying to just basically describe images. Like if I had an idea in my head, just trying to describe what that was. And I realized that was just a lot more fun. I know it maybe made a little less sense to people, but I felt like the songs could be stories in themselves. It might not always be really clear even to me what the meanings of them are, but I think that was kind of fun for me to, put that out and see the kind of reactions that I get from people, like what they would get out of the songs. And that was kind of the way things went. Yeah, that's pretty much that was the process there. But I know like, some early filmmakers that I really liked. I've always been a huge fan of David Lynch. Of course, it's obvious like with the Dismantle record that, I was watching some Scorsese movies. So those were some early ones. But then, as far as writers go, I don't know. I mean, I really like, I don't know. I don't think I'm influenced by any writers really.
Yeah.
But there have been some things. I know when I was in school, there have been some lessons that I learned about writing from writers that I don't even particularly care for. Like, just discussions. I remember having a discussion in class about a Hemingway short story that I didn't even like, but I liked the discussion we had, that it was that there was just a lot of there wasn't a lot of exposition in the story. There wasn't a lot of like overdoing it too much about going into the background of the characters, and in that way you can interpret it your own way. It was almost like reporting this event that wasn't even that exciting,
Yeah.
but so I think I almost kind of took a little bit from that in that with Weakling Planet, I wanted to kind of do that same kind of like very plain speech, like not get too overly descriptive, not give too much background on the characters, and almost just report on things. But I wanted the situations to be, crazy or absurd, or people really kind of either on their worst/best day of their lives, depending on how you look at it, and maybe even leaving out, maybe even just starting to get into the consequences of the actions, but not really getting too far into it. So yeah, I think that was a big thing. But as far as like kind of more like absurd stuff, I remember, I'm not an incredibly well-read guy. I went through a period of time where I was reading when I was younger, I was reading a lot of Henry Miller, where, I really liked, it's funny, I don't retain any of the information of reading it just because it just seems to plow right through you, like I think there's one book where it's just, I don't know, there's like
Capricorn maybe, or
Yes, Tropic of Capricorn. There's like some section of it where there's no punctuation or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, exciting. I think that was banned from the States at first, or
Yeah.
they let him publish it here, so it was published overseas at first because it was kind of lewd.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's just like he's just a real scumbag, you know.
Yeah. My favorite kind of guy. Something
But
about,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. So those are the kind of I of course like stuff. It goes hand in hand with David Lynch and David Cronenberg, but Kafka's stories are to me were a lot of fun. Yes. I don't know. It wasn't something that I read in a very like dry way. I read it because I was like, for laughs, because it's just so fucking weird and crazy,
But the same way.
But But as far as like with Weakling Planet, I think it was really just, a lot of the experiences, it's either total fantasy or it's stuff that happened to me, happened to people I know, or stuff that I heard about, but kind of turned more into fiction.
You filtered it through the prism of your mind, and we gave really cool snapshots. Yeah, so that's fun. Yeah. You mentioned Hemingway. I do like a lot of Hemingway. I actually like his short stories more than his books.
Me too.
Which short story? Do you remember what short story you were reading in class?
Oh, it was something about, I think it's, I'm going to mangle the title, but hills like white elephants or that's it. Did I said it? Wow.
Like, it's just mostly dialogue, right? And like a couple speaking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I like that about him too. So it's funny. I would never think of Hemingway while reading you, but like in terms of the brevity of the sentences and the way you said reporting, that is it. And it also makes it like, it makes the absurdity, I think, realer. Right. Because you're just like, it's nonchalant. You're like, this is happening. What? You're like, what?
Yeah.
And because sometimes I struggle with this sometimes as a writer, like I can overdo it. And I think that's why I'm always looking to like prose like yours, Hemingway's, Kafka does it too, where it's kind of like, it's, I hate saying the word simple, but I think simplicity is absolutely beautiful, especially when it's like starting to resonate on like a strange frequency. Mm-hmm. And, and Hemingway does that, even though people think of Hemingway these days as like maybe kind of stuffy and old.
Right.
Like, oh God, what the heck was his name? Oh geez, I can't even think of his writer's name. I'm totally spacing. People are going to listen to this and be like, he can't even think of this person's name. Whoever wrote Ulysses, the Irish writer.
Oh, James Joyce.
Thank you. And James Joyce, you think of James Joyce and you think of like absurd prose, long, crazy sentences, but he looked at Hemingway short stories, and in particular, it was a clean, well-lighted place, very short story, a lot like Hills Like White Elephants. It's so short, it's so clean, there's like no exposition, and Joyce said that is the best short story ever written.
Yeah.
So like, I love that idea, and I can totally see that in your prose. It's a hard thing to do. It might look simple, but I think it's extremely hard.
Oh, it is. It is. And it takes a certain amount of, you just want to explain it. You want to make it more clear, but I think you can muddy it up and then the clarity is gone. Sometimes the clarity comes from the brevity, just presenting it, just saying, all right, this happened.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. That's exactly what I would tell, like if I were teaching a class, and you do it really well in your book. You trust your readers, right? So you don't bang us over the head with like this, and this, just to make sure we all understand like one image or whatever, or insight. You just say it and you trust us to read it and interpret it and then just move on. Right. That's like a great lesson to learn as a reader and a writer. So it's really cool that you did that. And like, it's funny thinking of like, you say David Lynch and Kafka, and then I'm thinking of in terms of like creative lineage. And then I don't know if you watched, they call it not really season 3, but the Twin Peaks Return, whatever you called it.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
When Lynch was, reprising his role as agent, whatever his agent's name is. He's sitting in his office and there's 2 posters on the wall. Do you remember those posters?
I don't.
And I think it was like the 2 things that inspire Lynch. And one was the atom bomb going off. and, and the other was a giant picture of Kafka.
Oh, wow. I didn't catch that. That's pretty amazing though.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And, I think we both
Wow.
come into that, like, we love those types of things. I know we both like Lynch a lot.
Hmm.
I wonder what is it, do you think, that that makes you attracted to things that are maybe hard to digest and or absurd? Do you have any idea?
That's a tough question because I remember, well, David Lynch is a really good jump off point here for this question is I remember discovering him through Eraserhead. And it was really just I went to the video store. I think I was like about maybe 16 years old. I went to the video store and I just saw the cover of Eraserhead, and I was like, and when I turned it around, there were like a couple of images from the movie, and I was like, all right, I think I had discovered marijuana fairly recently, so I kind of went home and watched it, and I couldn't believe it. It was I think immediately I saw the connection between that movie and Dream Logic. Like immediately, like I was like, wow, this is like watching somebody's dream.
Yeah.
And I immediately just fell in love with that. And I never saw anything like it, of course, since or before. But and then it was just one of those weird movies where like every once in a while you bring up to somebody, be like, yeah, did you ever see Eraserhead? That's some bugged out shit,
Yeah.
And but I didn't really, I was young and I didn't really think about film directors or anything like that. So years went by and I saw Blue Velvet also, and I really liked that. Had no idea it was the same guy. But I just really liked it. But and then a couple of years later, Will Dahl, who's now in Dissolve, we were really good friends for many years. I remember he was like, yeah, why don't you come over tonight? I got the new David Lynch movie, Wild at Heart. I was like, who's David Lynch? And he's like, oh, he did Eraserhead, Blue Velvet. And I'm like, wait a minute. He's my favorite director. I'll be over tonight. Because I didn't know it was the same guy, but I was like, you mean this is the same guy? Okay, I'll be over tonight. I can't wait to watch this. And that was the first one that I saw as a fan. And understanding that, okay, I know what I'm getting into here watching this. But I don't know. It was something but even as a teenager, that was something that I know some people, I've tried to show Eraserhead to people, when I was younger, and they were really turned off. Some people had really, really intense reactions, like thought I was a really fucked up person for liking it, stuff like that. And, so as far as what draws me to the things like that, I don't know. I think I say this about a lot of things. I say this about punk rock and metal, and it finds you. I think eventually something like that. It's like you have a connection, and it's funny, but a lot of people that I met over the years, without us even talking about it, we're like, oh, you love David Lynch too? Of course you do, because we have this easy thing between us.
I think to connect it to the idea of being an outsider, I think Lynch's worldview exists on the fringes as well. And he's looking at, on the outside, looking in at the weird world. Blue Velvet's a great example of like, it's the real world, but he shows you the underbelly. And like that, as an outsider, I feel like that's all you're looking at. I mean, a specific type, I guess different outsiders might see different things, but a lot of people are on the like sidelines of reality, and they're seeing like all these normal things happening, but they're like, this is just bullshit. None of this makes any sense. And like that first image, I think it's the first image in Blue Velvet where the camera zooms down through like the American dream, like picket fence and the grass, and then to beneath the grass, and I think maybe we see insects or something.
Yeah, the insects. Yeah.
And you're just like, oh, just through one image, you kind of encapsulate all that. So I think that maybe might be why I have a problem, as an outsider, and that's why I'm addicted to these things. But I have so we were supposed to record an interview like a week or two ago, and I realized I couldn't because I was becoming one of your characters. Like I was I got
Really?
home after a power outage, and we had a horrible storm, and our basement flooded. And a flooded basement is just, I think, a funny, absurd thing. It's the nature reclaiming your house, saying this is
Right.
mine. And I'm just standing there. The boiler is like gurgling fire and water at the same time. And and I'm supposed to talk to you soon. And I'm like, I'm literally about to just punch a hole through the rock of my house foundation, and then like eat my way through the ground, like some of your poor characters might. So I was thinking about that, and like that for me, whether it's Kafka, Hemingway, Lynch, you name it, Weakling Planet, the mark of a great story for me, or a piece of art, is like it changes the way I see the world after, right? And so I constantly think of your characters and the situations they've been put in that are mostly rather unfortunate or funny. So I was wondering, if like one of the stories that haunts me, well, a lot of your stories haunt me in a very good way, but one of them I keep thinking about is The Mask. I think it's
Oh,
called.
really? Okay.
I love that story. It's super, it's funny and really sad all at once. It's a lot of emotions that are hard to pull off at the same time. So I was curious if like you could walk us through the process. I always love listening to writers talk about, not so much like where does the idea come from, but like how does it look in the beginning? Like what is that germ of an idea for you at first? Do you remember how that, like you saw something, or how did the story look in the very beginning? Do you remember any of that?
Well, I know with that one and probably a lot of the other ones, it started out with kind of a vague idea where I think it was just like this guy, he wants to construct this crude mask, out of a knit cap, basically to pull over his face, and he's going to wear it for the rest of his life. So that he's pretty much determined that. So I was thinking about all of the major things that happen to a person in their life and all of the little miniature things that happen in your life, and to kind of imagine this person still wearing this ludicrous mask through all of it, through all of the little things, the inconveniences that we have to do, like anything that has to do with like the DMV down to, the loss of loved ones, marriage, children, all kind of wearing this absurd mask. And like a lot of the stories, I think I started with the idea, and then I just kept going because I wanted to kind of see how it ended myself. I was like, how am I, where's this going? This is interesting, So I was just right, click, clack, click, clack.
Yeah.
And kind of like by the time I got to the end of that one, like when that one in particular, I think when I finished it, I laughed. Like I kind of cracked myself up. I know you shouldn't laugh at your own jokes.
Oh no, you should. I think that's good. That's how you know it's working.
But I know, but when I went back to kind of revise and edit it, yeah, you're right. There's a lot. There's a lot in there. There's a lot of pain. There's joy. There's I don't know. Yeah, it's funny and sad. Yeah, and but that's kind of the way but that's in my experience, that's the way life is, and it depends on how you look at it, and you have to recognize some of the absurd moments and laugh, and even in the terrible moments, find the absurdity to laugh at. So
yeah, like we might all put on different, masks for different situations, but your character chose to just rock the same mask that he made for everything, no matter what.
right.
Sounds, which is
So-
kind of bad.
So I always kind of think it's like he's been through all these situations, and I don't know, when I think a little bit more about it, because of course I think the book goes by very quickly. It's like, all right, I'm on to the next story, whatever. But I think when I've had to spend more time with it than anybody else. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to me that this guy, to everybody else, he's just always had this like this look of whatever the mask is. There's no expression, you know.
Yeah.
It's just this mask with like, you know, felt lightning bolts on it or whatever. So, you know,
You should make it.
yeah.
You should make the mask and then and start wearing the readings. But yeah, I love it, there's so much humor throughout the stories as well, which is, again, I think it's a hard thing. And you say it's not good. I know you're joking. To good. It's not too good to laugh at your own stuff. But one of my favorite quotes is from the poet Robert Frost. I think it's him, and he says, "If the writer's not crying, the reader's not crying. You know, if the writer's not laughing, the reader's not laughing." So I think there's something to it. If it's working on you, chances are it's going to work on someone else. You know, like it's got an energy. So I mean, when people read it, and those who have, I mean, it's awesome to see people reading it and enjoying your book, and that's like the best gift. I'm sure it feels amazing for you to see like this thing you know, it started as a germ in like '92, and then
Right.
you bring it to this new space, and it's amazing. I mean, that to me is like one of the best gifts, to have someone work on something and they feel confident in it, they love it, and then to put it into the world and see people, you know, really responding to it is fantastic. And you know, I'm honored to play a small part in that, and like just be the bridge, the portal that brings it to some people. And it's been really, really cool to see people digging it so much. I would love to get something going on in real life soon and have a reading and scare people. You know, like I've been in audiences of Dissolve, right? And I've been screamed at by you. And the book does something similar, where it's like, I'm gonna grab you by the collar and I'm gonna make sure you hear me. Like, this is important, this is crazy, this is beautiful. And I think that's probably why people are responding to it. Not that you have to listen to metal or anything to get this book, but there is that type of intensity that's, you know, that's with it. So yeah, I would love to see you read these in real life at some point.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I like about putting out this book is that, yeah, I can kind of put that energy out. But people who are kind of turned off by screaming vocals and, you know, like, you know, thrashy music or whatever can still get that kind of intensity from it without having to go through that kind of inconvenience for them of like being in a loud room or having to try to figure out what I'm saying, you know? But yeah, but I kind of look at it. I know there's been some friends of mine that have reached out to me saying, yeah, it's great. I'm so proud of you that you wrote this book. I'm not really much of a reader, but you know, I'll order it to support you or something. And I kind of say, I'm like, I kind of hope it was that, you know, this is kind of a book for people that maybe think they don't like to read, you know, that I try to like keep it moving very quickly. And I think especially if you are familiar with kind of heavier music, I almost kind of look at it as like a, you know, like almost like kind of like a, I don't know, like a written version of like a grindcore album. I mean, there's some stuff that's like maybe, you know, instead of something being like 3 minutes long, it's 3 pages long. And there's one that's like, all right, well, here's one that's 7 words long.
That's a great way of looking at it.
You know, so, you know, it's, I think, and some reports have gotten back of, and, you know, that, yeah, they've been able to read it, and that makes me happy, you know, and
Yeah.
and I think these days it's kind of, you know, print, anything in print can be kind of a tough sell on people, you know, and so, yeah, I know being able to, I think it might be neat to go out and kind of do readings and be in the same room with people, almost to kind of convince them that, you know, they're getting into something with this book that I think is a good time. It's enjoyable. I think it's not, I don't know. I guess it's heavy sometimes. I don't know, Maybe I'm not the best person to describe it. I don't
The
know.
person who makes the art is always has a tough time describing it, I think. Like I hate talking about my own stuff. So I understand it's just tough, especially when you live with it for so long.
Right.
It's hard to say, and it doesn't even matter because their interpretations is now that's what matters, right? Like
Right.
the book out there, the book is its own thing, and you are just an afterthought. Like you're the ghost that just created this thing. But I think you're right. I think the book is it's for everybody, but it's for people who might not think they like reading, but it's fun. I mean, when you look at the book, which is funny because when you first sent me like the first draft, I was like, when we condense this down into a format for a book, it's going to be a big book, right? There's going to be a lot more pages.
Right.
Because we wrote on like an 8x10 Word doc. And when you condense it down to whatever we did, 5x8 or something, you have now like the book's like 250 pages about.
Yeah.
It looks daunting. Like when you hold it,
Yeah.
you're like, holy crap.
Yeah.
But it moves. So like comparing it to a grindcore album, I love that. It's so true. Like I love so much grind. And that was like one of my first real loves in like heavier music. And I think for that in particular, what's so fun about that kind of music is it's super short. There could be 10-second songs, 30-second songs. And then you want to hear them 1,000 times. Right.
Right.
I'm thinking like, like The Locust. First time I heard like Moth Eaten Deerhead. And that song is like somehow like it's almost like a pop song at some points with the keyboard. Do, 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 do. And then it's heavy and I want to hear it like a million times. Right.
Right.
I love that kind of stuff. And yeah, it has your book has that intensity, that brevity. And there's, I was going to say it has something for everybody, but it does. Like it's got ultra violence. I mean, it's pretty crazy at points, right? Your characters unfortunately go through some wild things, but you do this thing that again, it's quite hard to do where you make it funny.
Right.
But also then it's heartbreaking. So that stuff, it's really, 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 really awesome to read. And then there's some things that show up every now and then. And I was curious if you could tell us what it is, what's about it. Like I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, does Tom Selleck show up a few times?
Yeah, Tom Selleck is there's kind of two stories that are connected, but by an incident that happens at Tom Selleck's house. Yeah. Where somebody breaks into his house. And I think it's the actual crime that takes place and then the investigation that happens later.
The image to think of Tom Selleck while reading the book.
I don't know. I mean, that one's kind of funny because I actually wrote a much longer story, I think in the late 90s. And that was just actually like a couple of scenes from a longer piece. And looking back on the story, I really didn't like it, but I liked those couple of moments. And so I thought that they could kind of stand on their own. And Tom Selleck, he was just already there. I don't remember why I thought of him at the time, but I think it works,
It works.
Yeah.
So in terms of process, and this might be a tough one, but like, so you say you're looking at old stories, and like I know what you mean. Like I could look at a story I wrote a week ago, and I'm like, ugh, I never want to see it again.
Right.
So I can't imagine looking at stories that are decades old.
Right.
But that's exciting because like you said, you kind of have the bare bones of an idea, and
right?
You can put the meat on it, and you have a fully formed human. How do you know that you're getting it somewhere through the editing process? Like, is there like a certain thing that clicks with you? Like, does that make sense? Like, does the story start to come to life? And at what point do you know you're going in the right direction? Can you answer that?
I think when I start to kind of get excited and to see, and there starts to be different ways that it can go. I could go this way with it or that way. That's when it starts to kind of get exciting. And I think I have something there. There's also been some of them that I wrote. And then I think there's a few. There's one. Yeah, there's a couple of them that I wrote. And then going back in the editing process, that, you know, I reread it and I was like, nah, this sucks, you know. And I would just kind of rework it until it was something that that I liked. I think there was there's one story in there. It's the one I feel the weirdest about, because I think it's the darkest one. It's called Death.
Yeah.
I mean, that's based on like something that really happened to me. There was like a really mean, like practical joke that was played on me by a couple of older kids in my neighborhood when I was a teenager. And at first I just kind of like reported it. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, this thing and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, wow, this is just so unbelievably, I like, it was interesting when it happened to me. But boy, it's a boring read, you know? So then I decided to make it a total like revenge fantasy. And I was like, yeah.
It's like a very healthy therapy, I would say.
I felt really good after. I mean, I know it's terrible and it's really bleak and dark and violent and everything, but there was a little bit of like, I don't know, like a release writing that, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and we're all happy that you decided to write it instead of actually do it. Right.
Right.
That's why writing is so good. It's a therapy.
And there was another one, I think it was the same thing. There was like a revenge thing or whatever. There was somebody that like a random guy when I was in like 6th grade, just for no reason at all, just punched me in the face. Like we were alone in a hallway, and it was one of those things. I just moved into this new town, and that was like one of my first things that happened to me was the guy just randomly punching me in the face. And yeah, I got, and you know, now like about 40 years later, I got my revenge on him, you know, in this book.
We'll show him. That's amazing. Oh man. So I think you probably agree, like when you get into heavy music after being an outsider, you find a kind of new confidence, right? In that, you know, you feel like you are part of this community, even if you don't even know anybody yet who listens to heavy music. And then, so like, I see that, you know, as we said, through the book a lot. And then at one point, I think we're at a Metallica concert, and we talked about like band shirts and stuff. Like, there's such a power to a band shirt. Yes. Right. Like, it's amazing, right? Like you got Napalm Death on right now. And then it's I think there's something so powerful about it. I don't know, like, do you remember your early band shirts? Like, was that like a way of like signaling to people like, look, I listen to fucked up heavy music?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially really like in, you know, when I was young in the 80s, that was definitely the way. That was like the smoke signals that you would send up to find your tribe. You know, absolutely. I mean, that's actually, it's funny, but yeah, just like seeing people in the hallway, you know, and being like, and you would literally say like, you like Metallica, you know, or you like Slayer, like, you know, oh my God. That's really kind of how I ended up finding a lot of my friends, because I actually kind of discovered this kind of music in a weird way. Not so much metal, like it was through another outsider, like when I was like, 12 or 13 years old. But as far as like hardcore music, I think, well, there's a story called I Listen to Hardcore Punk Now. That's not a true story, but the part of that is true is that I discovered it through a guy who really wasn't a punk rock guy. He kind of like somebody gave him a mixtape, and then he gave me the mixtape to listen to. So it's weird. So then I became like this, like I'm secretly into, you know, this stuff like Minor Threat, Black Flag, Circle Jerks, anything that was on this tape, and then I would try to find it, you know. So yeah, but it is kind of interesting though, because you're even in that weird kind of incognito way that nobody really knew that I was into this music. It still made me feel, just hearing the lyrics and the presentation and the anger involved with all of it. You know, it made me feel like there were other people, You know, there are other people that were the same.
Yeah.
So that was really comforting. But as far as the band shirt thing, yeah, absolutely. Definitely. That was a real big part of the culture. Definitely in the 80s. And I'm sure it probably endures to this day. I actually saw a guy wearing, I think I was at a deli counter, and a guy was wearing a Gorilla Biscuit shirt, you know, who was, you know, slicing the turkey for me, you know, and I was, you know, I struck up a conversation, and it is like, it's a moment where you both look, you give it each other. He, you know, almost gave me a suspicious look because, you know, I'm freaking old fart, you know.
No, that's exactly how, you know, it was with me and my friends. And like in high school, I was, you know, I guess 10th grade, 2001 or so. And I was really into like metal, but not like hardcore yet. But like, you know, I remember the hallways, and I feel pretty good, you know, as a loner in my whatever, you know, Marilyn Manson shirts or Pantera shirts. And then I was like, oh, that kid, he's also got black shirts with bands on him, but I don't know those bands. And that literally was how I got into like Converge and Blood Has Been Shed and, you know, all that. And then he would become my best friend, and we'd start a band together, right? Like,
Wow.
it's the best. And I still see that today. Like I see kids, you know, skateboarding in a parking lot they shouldn't be in. I'm like, I'm very happy to see you. Like,
Right.
keep it up. You're like, they're like, fuck off, old man. I'm like, all right, fuck. I will. So yeah, there's the power of a band t-shirt is incredible. And I think it's persisting even today. Doesn't have to be metal, you know, sometimes, you know, it punk and some hip hop, you know, whatever it is.
Yep.
It's a powerful thing. How old were you when you started the band with Dissolve?
I was 19.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that I'm still a member of my first band.
This doesn't happen.
No.
You're very lucky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of wild. Yeah. But, yeah, I was 19 years old. The only one who's still left with me is, Jamie, the guitar player. John, who, I kind of started the band with, who is Jamie's brother. He left about 5 years back. So he made it for like 25 of the years, you know, but it was the three of us. But yeah, now it's just down to Jamie and I that were part of the original. But I mean, everyone else has been in the band for a really long time. I think Chuck's been our bass player for like, you know, 25 years. Todd's been our drummer for like over 20.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a pretty solid lineup. But yeah, 19 years old. Yeah, I know it's a trip.
You talk about it a little bit, like band relationships in the book. And it's pretty funny, like when you talk about like people maybe they're not in a band, but they're talking, and like it's like they have their own little language. And like it resonated with me so much because, you know, I was in really one band for like I don't know, 10, 15 years, and there's really nothing like being in a band and trying to mitigate all those relationships creatively, personally. You know, you're in this relationship with these other people in your band, and then you're in their relationships too, when you're that age, at least, you know, like high school, college, and trying to create something together is really hard. So to see like Dissolve, you know, still going and like making awesome music is so impressive and inspiring. And to hear, you know, you got people in the band for 25 years, that's insane.
Yeah.
We couldn't do a year with some people. like I don't know how you guys did it. This is how I felt. I wonder if you feel the same. Like, was it relieving to sit down and like do a book all by yourself? Or is it scary as opposed to having a band and kind of like forming something together with people?
Yeah, that is a good question. No, it was nice. So the thing about writing the book, is that it was like a completely different thing. You know, first of all, it was, it's this silent thing that only I know about, you know, and for a long time it was only me. And it was really, it it was actually a really big move to send it to you, because I was just like, oh, geez, I'm the only person who even knows this really exists, you know. Like even my family would watch me typing away, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I'm just writing stories, you know. And then, you know, even when you said, you know, that you were going to publish it, I remember like telling like my daughter and my wife, and they were like, "You wrote a book?" It's like, yeah, I told you I was working on stories, and I don't know, I guess, you know, but you know, we get caught up so much in everyday life. But the thing that was great about that is that, yeah, it was something I could do totally on my own. It was something that I could do whenever I had a quiet moment. I mean, I know that with the magic of, you know, Google Docs, it was something I could do, like, you know, revising and editing on my phone while I'm waiting in a doctor's office, you know, or something, you know, here and there. So just having my own little kind of secret thing that I was working on was, yeah, it was fun. It was a little liberating. I mean, I've made music by myself too, but this was different. You know, it was really, I really kind of wanted to work on it just myself, and didn't want anybody to like give me any feedback or read it until I knew that it was where I needed it to be. You know,
Right.
that was really the thing. I did a lot of work on it before I even let, you know, one other person read it, which, you know, was you.
Yeah. And when I got it, it was fully formed, right? Like I couldn't even like see really things that needed tweaking. Like it was clear to me that this had gone through, you know, all the process that you needed it to go through to get to a place where it felt good to you.
Right.
And I knew like immediately. I remember reading like the first story or two, and I was like, "Oh, I want this. This is, you know, like Vulture House was just me at first, and
Mhm.
I know I wanted to put out other people, and like I was sincerely honored that you asked, and like you sent me the book, and I was like, holy shit, this is perfect. You know, it was exactly what I think Vulture House tries to represent. You know, it was punk rock. I just see it's punk rock, right? This is exciting, this is scary, and it's funny. It's all these things, and I knew like people are gonna really enjoy reading this, and I did. You know, every time I would read it, I might have told you this, but every time I'd read it, you know, I read it multiple times, I'd laugh. Like it wasn't like I never got numb to the words, right? Like that's how you know things are working, right? I would always, you know, you start a story, I'm like, damn, you started that so well, and then you're like, you don't know where it's going, which is exciting, and then it ends in a place tragic or funny or whatever, and you're like, man, that was really exciting. That was a really exciting story, and like the word choice. So, you know, I just finished teaching after like 8 or 9 years, and I was prepared to offer some type of insights into like how maybe you could make a story better or whatever. And I just didn't have those feelings. I just had like maybe a few little grammar things. I was
Mhm.
like, this is ready to go. You know, it's being cooked. So it's really exciting. I'm so honored that you sent it to me. And shout out to Nick Haynes for
Yeah.
I think giving you the idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nick,
That's,
my
yeah, Nick,
favorites.
it's funny because Nick, I had actually, I wrote a story. It was, it's in the book. It's called Number 242.
Okay. Yeah.
And I wrote Nick just because I had finished, I'd finished it up. I was totally happy with it, you know. And the thing that was interesting about that one was that when I saw the word count was 242.
Oh wow.
And so I was just like, oh, whoa. And I knew that Nick was probably the only person I knew that would like, you know, appreciate that, like think that was neat.
Yeah.
So I sent him a text saying, I just wrote this story called Number 242 and the word count is 242. And he was like, and he wrote back, he was like, wow, that's crazy. You know, of course, you know, he's probably just like, whatever, you know, but he's like, oh, you're writing, huh? You know, whatever. You should send it to Shane. You know,
Oh man.
he started this, you know, the publishing company. And I was like, okay. It was just one of those things I kind of kept in my mind. I'm like, when I'm ready.
Yeah. Of course.
So.
I mean, that's like a double honor because I love both you guys so much. And yeah, Nick, I mean, for those listening, if you're familiar, When Dreams Die, Robots and Empire, Mind Force now. And you guys were in a band together that played out, right?
Yeah.
What was it? I forgot the name of that band.
Secret Fangs.
Oh yeah. Damn. You guys are like that whole the Poughkeepsie scene of music is the busiest, craziest group of people.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. I remember seeing you and Nick and maybe another band in a cafe in Beacon like 37,000 years ago. You might have been playing.
Oh, yeah. I think if it was a long time ago and it was with Nick, maybe it was Spare Parks.
Oh, it might have been Spare Parks. Yeah.
Yeah, with Mike Shaw, Greg, Jay, Evan.
That was a great band.
Yeah, it really was. That was a lot of fun. That was just like a lot of people together with a lot of cool ideas,
Yes.
and really anything goes kind of attitude, that was, yeah.
So it was very exciting to see, because all those people, everyone in that band were in other bands that I always really liked. So seeing you all together, making something, it was extraordinary. So it's awesome. So it's so much fun to know, like, just to see, like, Nick, for me, if I'm going to geek out, to see Nick, say to you about Vulture House, and then we get to make, Weakling Planet a physical thing is amazing to me. There's another part in your book where you talk about living in a parking lot.
Okay. Yep.
Do you ever go by any parking lots and be like, that's where I'll set up shop if I have to?
Well, I did live in a parking lot for a little while. I think around 1995. I was between living arrangements. I don't remember exactly what happened. I think we all had to vacate a house, like my roommates and I, and they all ended up crashing with the same friend. And it just seemed like if I did it too, it was going to be this tiny apartment with a bunch of guys in sleeping bags in a living room. And I was like, I kind of rather just sleep in my car, than do that. But it ended up going on for a while. And the weird thing about it was that there was something kind of appealing about it. It was almost like you were camping every day. You were I would hang out, wherever I was, I could just kind of like get into the car and just, go to sleep. I had it like kind of set up in the back seat. It was a big car.
Yeah.
But as far as that, I know, I think I think that's probably where it came from, was that kind of like living in a car by choice, taking it to a total extreme, going as far as I could with it, to the point of where the person had it all mapped out in a way that they would never have to leave the car, and also it's just, that one. And it's funny. That's another one that I was telling my brother-in-law about. A lot of some of these stories, they start out as an idea that I think is going to be funny, and then it ends up being depressing. Like when I get to the end of it, I'm like, oh, that's a sad one. Like, I didn't mean that. Didn't mean it to be sad.
I see a mix. There's some of them but it also depends on the reader, Like I haven't lived out of a car like that, but I've been on tour and in like shitty vans.
Right.
And we're living in parking lots in different cities. Like, probably the worst places, you play the Poughkeepsie of every state.
Isn't that the truth? You play the Poughkeepsie of every state when you're in a band like us. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you become friends with like the people who live in those parking lots.
Right.
Like, we had people in the parking lots with the chance that you would get to know. And you meet those people everywhere. And had you been touring before you lived in the car?
Let me think. No, not really. Unfortunately, Dissolve never really did a lot of touring. Okay. We were always, a couple of guys in the band had really good day jobs that they had a hard time getting time off for. So we were really we were long weekend guys. And every once in a while, we would do like a week. I think we did a week in Canada. Yeah. And I don't think we really did anything again until like 2008. We went and did a bunch of shows with Overcast, but come to think of it, even those were long weekends. Like they were like more like 4 days at a time, whatever, but all like kind of around like starting on a Thursday, ending on a Sunday kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah.
bands aren't touring like they used to now, which is so funny to me. I was talking to a band recently. I wrote the story for them, and I think they're starting to tour now, but like they're telling me about uploading their music to Spotify and making money. I'm like, making money?
You make money? Spotify?
and it's just like the way, and it's like a heavy band, and and they've made a real name for themselves through streaming platforms, and that's so foreign to me. Like we thought, and I think we come from different generations of the heavy scene, and you're a little older than me, but it was the same idea, right? You play as many shows as you can. It doesn't have to be touring,
right?
Like you play out a ton, and you get better that way. You find people that way. You sell merch.
Yep.
Maybe you guarantee of $25, and that's it. And it's just so funny to see how that's changed. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just they found the hustle and they're making it work.
Right.
And I'm happy to see people, loving heavy music still.
Right.
That to me is, and making it, all that stuff. So, and speaking of heavy music, got a shout out to Chris Grosso. I hope I'm saying his name correctly.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you know Chris?
How do I know Chris?
Yeah.
I met Chris years ago. He would come see us play in Connecticut. And then many years, well, not many, but I guess years would go by, and he became a writer, and he had a blog, and he reached out to me for an interview. And really, ever since we did that interview, we've always kept in touch. That was maybe like 10 years ago now, maybe more. And we've always just kind of kept in touch with each other. And then Dissolve started playing again, and I would see him at shows. He came out to our shows or whatever, and it was always really great to see him. And he actually took the photo that's in the insert for Dissolve's last record.
Cool.
So, and he of course, when it came time to kind of write the blurb for when you said, oh, do you know anybody who could write like a blurb or something? He was the first person I thought of. I was like, I could ask Chris, he's great. And we have a band that we're eventually going to do something with. It is a band, it's in the very loose kind of sense of the word.
It sounds amazing.
But
I hope we get to hear, the people get to hear the music soon, because it sounds awesome.
Yeah. Occult Knife. Yeah. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. It's really just kind of like demos. We used to call them, boombox recordings, whatever, but I'm sure it was recorded with a phone, but, so just kind of sharing the music with each other. And I've just kind of like demoed some vocals so I don't forget, which I'm glad, because now the demos are kind of old, and I think we're gonna be getting that off the ground in some way, hopefully by the end of the year. So
awesome. I hope so. Yeah. Shout out to Chris. You wrote a really great blurb for this book. It was a perfect addition. I'm so glad he was able to write that. I love, and then also shout out to Evan Schloman for designing this amazing book cover, and it fits your voice so well. I'm so happy with it. So that was a great idea from Paul to reach out to Evan. And
Evan was the only person I had in mind. So when he said yes, I was super excited, because I only wanted him, So, and I thought it was funny though, because I just thought that he'd come up with like an idea, but if you remember, he came up with like 20.
I liked all of them.
I know, and I liked them all. So it was that was actually kind of tough. But the one that we went with, that one really did jump out at me like right away. I was just like, that one, maybe with this one's letters, and
it worked so well.
Again,
it was it was cool to collaborate with Evan. He's another musician that I've liked for a very long time.
Oh yeah.
So it's just like so much fun to work on your book and kind of, get to know Chris through you and seeing Evan's work, which I've always admired his work. So yeah, Weakling Planet is a really exciting book, and every time I see someone posting about it online, I feel like I'm so happy for you, and like seeing people, and I know how you must feel like when you've put out a book and like now people are actually holding it. It's surreal.
It
It's surreal and
is.
scary.
It's kind of scary. I was definitely nervous,
Yeah.
when it was finally like, I think it hit me when you said that, like, I think you had posted a picture of a bunch of packages, and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
There they go. There they go. So yeah. So to people to actually, spend some time and read it. Yeah. I know it's weird because it is this thing. Like I said, it's a very, very private thing for so long. It's only yours, and then you're like, all right, I guess I'm going to put this out. Just going to see what people think, and, yeah, but the response has been good so far. Yeah.
Yeah. My good friend Max, I went to school with him. He also sang in a band, a heavier band. He once told me, like, this way back in college, so I'm going to butcher how he said it, but he told me, like, we might be attracted to writing, although it's like a very silent solitude creation, but it's also like as raw as heavy music can be, because it is like we're just opening up your brain and getting straight pure you thoughts, which is terrifying to share.
Right.
And like on stage, we're just puking our guts out. And it's also raw and scary, although, we can mutate into whatever monster we have to be on stage. But the book is another type of monster that now when you send it out there, people are going to be holding that monster. They're not just going to leave the show and hear, the ringing in their head. They're going to live with this book. So it's extra scary, but I liked when he said that, like they're both like these raw art forms. And I always put those two together and think about that. And I was thinking about that while, reading your book and getting together. So yeah, it's amazing. I'm happy for you. Are you, after this, like, do you feel like you have, are you working on anything else writing wise?
Not really. But I definitely want to. I mean, I kind of want to see how, how the response is with this one. I've had a couple ideas here and there for stories. But I think I had just worked like so hard on this, for months that I've just been kind of been sitting back and just enjoying, just relaxing, enjoying the fact that, something that it's all out there, and like this is the next step for it. And I'll get back to work though. I definitely really, really enjoyed the process of writing this book, writing these stories, and like you were saying before, yeah, it is funny when you're the singer in a band. You have, especially with Dissolve, there were 4 other guys that were really, really loud. Like this loud wall or whatever, and there's safety in that. Like you're out front, but you're almost drowned out by all the other sound. You're screaming, nobody really knows what you're talking about anyway. But with a book, it really is, it has to just kind of stand on its own. It has to work, with somebody reading it, and that's scary. And I don't know if you ever really know yourself until, whether it works or not, until you put it out and hear what other people have to say, And
if they don't like it, then fuck them.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing, is that maybe when I was younger, I would have been so I don't know, paralyzed with fear of how people would take it, or if they would understand it or reject it. And I think I've reached an age to where I just don't care. I'm like, either you get it or you don't, and it's really not going to hurt my feelings.
Right. Yeah. It's like what you said when you went back to school after feeling like an outsider for the first time. At this point, I'm me. You take it or leave it.
Right.
And that's a hard thing to come to. It could take a long time to feel that way. And it could just keep happening, right? you feel confident for a year, 6 months, 10 years, and then you lose it. But in the art, I think I feel that way every time I make anything. Like I feel like first, and maybe you could agree, like, or not agree, like when I first start making something, I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. I might have done this 100 times before, but I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to finish this. This is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then you finish, you get to a place where you got your book, you feel good about it. And then when you start anything else again, the whole process starts over. I don't think it gets easier. And you've been
No.
making art forever, like, so you know more than me. It might get easier, the process maybe, but do you feel like you have that same type of attitude when you're starting something?
I don't know. As far as music goes, and definitely with writing lyrics, I think I used to, with lyrics, maybe I felt like it used to come a lot easier to me, where I would just, before I had kids or anything, I would just go to like a Dunkin' Donuts at night and just, fill up pages of a notebook, just to do it, and then just pick apart what works and what doesn't, I don't, I can't do that now. I think I'm too critical to do that. There's like, when you learn, I think the more you know and the older you get, the more you realize that most of what you do, most of what is going to come out of you that way is garbage. So you're kind of like, I don't know, I'm a lot harder on myself. So when it comes time to write lyrics these days, it's difficult for me, and I almost feel like there's also, you've already kind of set a standard for yourself, and that might not really exist in the real world, but where you think I'm like, well, people are, because I don't know, people probably don't really read the lyric sheet anyway, but but there's this thing, it's like, I don't know, people are expecting me to write good lyrics, and I'm like, I don't know, they probably just want to hear heavy riffs, I mean, honestly, but so it's weird. I think it could actually be a little bit harder, and I think especially with, and as far as like music and performance, I know it's actually a little bit, I remember I used to be able to just go out and I never really thought about playing shows or anything. We just went out and did it, and it was, and it was just fun, pure fun, whereas these days, I don't know, I almost feel like there's something I got to live up to, like, cause now I'm older and I'm like, can I still do stuff I did when I was 25? And I don't know, is anybody expecting me to? Does anybody want me to?
You can be crippled by all the thoughts.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's a little bit harder, and I think that's what's been a little bit liberating about working on the book, writing the stories, is that it was free from all of that kind of anxiety. It was just something I was just doing, and it was pure joy. It really was. It was just so much fun to do, and the hand wringing and anxiety comes when you put it out. That's more. But at the same time, like I was saying before, I have reached a point to where anytime I start to kind of get nervous about it, I'm just kind of like, fuck them if they don't get it,
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Did you have, I know, I think I asked you this, and hopefully, I think I did, but my life has been so chaos lately, I forget. Did you have a short story you could read out of the book?
Oh, yeah, I could read something. Is anything in particular?
Anything you want, anything you want. I think it'd be cool to have that on record, if you don't mind.
Okay. Boy, what would be a good, see, the hard part of this, and it's the same thing with like making like little video readings or whatever, is that I think there's something like 65 or 67 stories. So it's like, what is like the one that represents the book,
Let me see. Let's see here. I mean, there's so many, Paul. I'd be happy if you read any. They're all fairly short.
They are all fairly short, yeah. Let me see. No, I'm like flipping through, hoping something will like really kind of jump out at me. I could read I think I talked about, I listened to hardcore punk now. Maybe that one. Okay. Perfect.
Perfect.
Let's see if I can find that. But there. That's right. There's a table of contents here. There we go. Okay. Let's close to this one.
And you can scream every word if you don't mind.
I know. I like to think that there probably are some people that read this thinking of like, my like dissolve voice, That'd be pretty funny,
Yeah.
And all right. So so this one is called I Listen to Hardcore Punk Now. Okay. Chad, a painfully shy headbanger with no friends, violently stuffed his enormous backpack into his locker at the beginning of the school day. Dean, a mid-level popularity jock who had the locker right next to his, tapped him on the shoulder. Chad turned around. Dean looked different. He had shaved off his overly moosed hair and traded in his Nikes for a pair of combat boots. He was wearing a long black trench coat and a loud plaid necktie over a white t-shirt. Hey, man, I listen to hardcore punk now, Dean announced to Chad in a contrived and affected deadpan voice. You ever get into that stuff? I've heard a few songs, Chad said, lying. Dean nodded to some of his football friends who were passing by with a cartoonish snarl. Chad was embarrassed for Dean. He wasn't buying this sudden transformation. I borrowed this mixtape from Sam, Dean said as he produced a cassette from his breast pocket. Sam was the punk girl in school. There was only one. She used a mix of gelatin and hairspray to make her hair stand up straight and had a shirt that said, "We're the meat men and you suck." She dressed like a headbanger on Halloween. Chad thought that she looked hot like that. You should listen to it. Chad didn't want to listen to Sam's tape if it meant that he had to dress like Dean. Still, he was intrigued. Okay, I'll give it a try. Later that day, Chad put the cassette in his Walkman for the walk home from school. The music of the first song was fast, sloppy, crudely recorded, and sounded like it was being made up as it went along. However, there was a catchy call and response in the chorus. The lyrics implied that a fed-up group of young people could not be stopped. This concept appealed to Chad. He decided to keep listening. The next song was about spray painting walls. It had a lot of random changes in it and was over just as Chad was beginning to understand it. The next song was about how confusing it was for a young person to be heading for that adult crash. Chad had never heard lyrics like that before. They summed up how he actually felt every day of his life. He listened to the rest of the tape. He lost track of who the bands were from song to song, but he loved it, all of it. He loved the music, the message, and the feelings it brought out in him. It made him feel powerful, confident, euphoric, anxious, invincible, pissed off, nihilistic, dangerous, homicidal, satanic, and psychotic. He thought about Dean and how pathetic it was that he simply latched on to the hardcore punk fashion that he saw on TV. What a fucking Nimrod, Chad thought. Dean was never getting this tape back. Dean did not deserve this tape. Everybody deserves to fucking suffer. Suffer. Chad suddenly wanted to do something really stupid. He picked up a rock and hurled it through the window of the hardware store. He ran away as fast as he could, pushing little kids into the oncoming traffic as he went. He passed a church and gave the finger to a nun. Fuck your God, bitch, he screamed. He found a 2x4 lying in an alley, picked it up and charged at a police cruiser and began wailing on the driver's side door with it, scaring the shit out of the cop inside. They hate us. We hate them. We can't win. Chad ran away from the cruiser and the cop got out with his pistol drawn. He began firing recklessly in Chad's direction. A bullet hit the crossing guard in the leg and she cried out in pain and fell to the concrete. Chad zigzagged to avoid the bullets and jumped into the back of a passing pickup truck and escaped. When the truck came to a stop sign, Chad grabbed a 2-gallon gas tank that was lying in the bed of the truck and jumped out. He ran back to the school and started dumping the gasoline all over the front entrance. He lit a whole book of matches and threw it, igniting a blast of fire and heat. The flames spread quickly and Chad ran away from it as fast as he could. Chad pried a 12-foot length of barbed wire off of a fence on the side of the road and pulled it into the street. He jumped out of the way as the fire engines raged past. The barbed wire got caught up in their tires and tore them to shreds. The fire engine only got another half-mile down the road, sparks flying from the bare rotors, before it flipped over on its side and spun around a few times before coming to a screeching stop. The disabled fire engine blocked the other emergency vehicles from getting to the school fire. Soon, the whole school was engulfed in flames and ultimately collapsed to the ground. Chad stripped naked and ran down the center of town, giving the finger and shouting obscenities to everyone he saw. He was tackled to the ground and held there by a deli owner until the cop that he pissed off arrived and hit Chad several times in the head with his baton. He dragged Chad up from the ground, handcuffed him, and threw him into the back of the cruiser and drove him to the police station. Chad struggled to get away as the cop dragged him out of the cruiser and escorted him into the station. He was still completely nude and was covered in blood from his multiple head wounds. Chad looked over and saw Dean riding by on his bicycle. Dean stopped in front of Chad and gazed upon him in horror. Chad looked back in disgust at Dean's stupid haircut and idiotic clothes. "You fucking poser," Chad said, then spit blood in Dean's face. The cop hit him in the back of the head again with the baton and knocked him unconscious. Dean went back to listening to Phil Collins. Chad went to jail. He called his dad and told him that he liked it there.
Awesome. So good. I think I've been to that show in Poughkeepsie before. That might have happened at Crandall Street. Oh my God. I'm sure we've all seen all that type of crazy insanity at a hardcore show.
Oh, yeah.
I love that story.
Yeah.
I love that story. So well read, dude. So yeah, do you have any, I want to send people, so you made a really awesome video reading one of your stories. Where can we send people to go find that?
Oh, I think I put that.
It's on Vimeo, maybe?
Yeah, I think it's on Vimeo, and it's also, it's actually already, it's on YouTube also.
Okay. You know what
Yeah.
you'll do? Send me the link again.
Yeah, I will.
Have a link to Paul's book, Weakling Planet, in the about me of this video, and the video to your the link to your video that you made.
Mhm.
People need to watch that. It's the perfect collage of all the things you're awesome at doing: performance and video and writing. So this has been a blast. It's been so good to talk to you about this book finally, after I feel like I've been through hurricanes, literally, to talk to you. Now I'm speaking to you from my motel room somewhere outside of DC. I live like an assassin right now. I am one of your characters right now.
You really are.
City every day. I'm like, I can't do today. I'm away on business. It's like packing my rifle. So no, but seriously, I can't say it enough. I love this book. It's so cool that Vulture House was able to put this out into the world. Thank you so much to everybody who's ordered a book. It is
yes, thank you.
so cool. So cool. And so this is like Vulture House's, we're almost at our year anniversary of my first book. And it's amazing that now we've got, the both of us out there.
Yeah.
And our words and people are reading it. And there's really no better feeling. Of course, children. Of course, the kids.
Of course.
And all that good stuff. But it's I think it's a truly brave thing to make anything and see it through, and then to put it into the world. And you did that. For those of us who've been fans of yours for so many years, we've seen you do this for a long time, but this is new and this is really exciting. And the book is so much fun to read. And I do think it will shake readers. It'll make them see the world differently. And that's what I think is the best type of art. When you put the book down and you go outside and everything looks fucked up. Indoor makes more sense. Indoor can make more sense because of the way you filtered it through your brain.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for writing this book.
Oh, well, thank you for putting it out. Really, I'm thrilled. Yeah.
And thank you for everyone for reading it and buying it. And we hope to send this book out more. And I'd love to one day do a real reading in real life.
Me too.
I think that'd be a lot of fun. I know people want to see you do it live and read from it. And anything else you'd like to share that you're up to that we can listen to, or anything, watch?
Not really. The new Carcass album is great.
Oh, okay. Everyone go get the Carpet album. That's a good plug. I actually haven't listened to it yet. I should.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. But I mean, but in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, thanks to everyone who ordered the book. If you haven't yet, check it out. It really is a lot of fun. I think, don't be, I think the stories really move quickly and they're kind of fun to read. They can be, if you're into kind of intense situations, and you're easily, if you're easily bored, I think it's for you because it's not boring, if that's one thing I could say. Yeah, I mean, and as far as like Dissolve, I know we're up to some things. We're going to be getting together this month and hopefully kind of figuring out what our next plan of attack is. As the world is an ever changing hellscape. So,
Planet Part 2.
What's that?
Weakling Planet Part 2, the ever-changing hellscape.
Yes, the ever-changing. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm definitely going to start working on something new, like a new writing project soon. The ideas are starting to kind of come together. I don't really want to comment on what direction, if it's going to be more short stories or something longer, because I haven't really decided. So,
well, don't make us wait 30 years.
No. I want it to be a little sooner. Yeah, definitely.
Awesome, Paul. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Thank you for finding the time. You're the busiest man alive.
Oh my God, I'm nothing. I just try. All right, man. Well, have a good one.
Yep, you too.
Later.
All right. Bye-bye.